You're exactly what the world needs. In case you're wondering, it's time to get started.
You are now listening to the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast with your host, George Valenzuela.
This is education coach George Valenzuela. Welcome to the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast, where I provide all educators, whether instructional leaders or teachers, tips on how to be their best both personally and professionally. Now let's get into it. We're here today with Angie Freese. Angie is an educational consultant and the founder of Meant for More Collaborative. She's also a Solution Tree author and a new friend of mine. How are you?
I'm great.
I love that you excel in three major areas of your life. Number one, you put your family first. Number two, you're very dedicated to educational consultant. And three, you're very passionate about lifting people up and helping them find their joy. Before we dive into these topics, please introduce yourself to our audience.
My name's Angie Freese. I live in Woodbury, Minnesota, which is a suburb of the Twin Cities. Most importantly, I have been blessed to be a mother. I consider that to be my primary profession these days, particularly now that she's 13. I also have the good fortune to be blessed to be an educator. My grandmother was a teacher of first grade and had 35 kids in her classroom. And then she went on to be a principal in a time when no women were principals and administrators in education. Although I've always had a love of children, she really inspired me to move away from my initial dream to be an orthopedic surgeon and said, Ange, you can save a lot of lives as a surgeon, but you can save a lot more as a teacher. That's the impetus that drove me to change my major in my sophomore year of college. Here I am today, being, again, so grateful now to travel the country and work with educators.
Jamila Loving at Solution Tree, from time to time, reaches out to me and recommends authors she feels are excellent for this show. Angie, you're one of those people, and I'm so happy to speak with you today. This is the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast, and on this show, we focus on self-improvement by interviewing people who are excelling in three important areas of their lives so that we can learn from them to experience similar success. Angie, tell us about your family and why putting them first is so important to you.
I am blessed to be the mom of a 13-year-old daughter. Her name is Kennedy. She is my only and is truly the center of my world. She brings me wisdom. She brings me joy. She also brings me loads of humility. I started my teaching career when I was 22, and I took in my students as my own, right? And we had this wonderful family communal environment in the classroom. But it wasn't until I had a child of my own that I really understood the urgency of what my responsibility was as an educator, and also how seriously I wanted to invest in not only the students that I worked with, but the families and the community that I was so blessed to serve. My own daughter, again, is just a source of humility for me. She is just an incredible human being. Although she's only had a decade and a half on this earth, she already shows such resilience and such self-regulation that would rival that of most adults.
I can so relate. I remember when I became a teacher, I was George Valenzuela, and then immediately I became Mr. V. And what I realize now is that George Valenzuela wasn't a role model. He was a 22-year-old that was trying to figure things out. But Mr. V immediately had a paradigm shift and was a role model for all these kids. But that helped me because a couple of years later, I had my daughter as well. It's amazing how you meet someone that you know that the love affair will last forever. Congratulations.
Thank you.
As every parent of a teenager knows, navigating relationships with them isn't easy. What's your secret weapon?
My secret weapon is to say I'm sorry. I'm the first person to recognize that maybe my words or my actions might have been coming from an emotional space sometimes. I also think that models and normalizes being able to say, I'm sorry, I'll do better next time. Thank you for letting me know how you felt. I think that also aligns with listening, not just to my daughter's words, but also to her body language. She is communicating with me, and how I learn to to notice her words, notice her behaviors so that I can nurture that into the most positive or cultivate the most humanizing environment for us at home. I think that's really important to me. I also think another parenting win has been to be explicit in my expectations. For example, I might ask her to clean her bathroom, and her version of what cleanliness looks like might be a little different than mine. I model those expectations. I think the real talk with that, although the bathroom is a humorous example, I think I'm also modeling my expectations for her to use her voice, to learn her spirit of advocacy, to learn her agency, so that she can communicate her needs in a direct and respectful way. And I also think the other thing that makes our relationship work is that I model self-care. We're a unique situation because my daughter navigates between two households, and much of her resilience certainly has come from her ability to code switch between two very loving, very nurturing homes. Part of our bond that we've built is because we truly are redefining what happiness and what safety mean when it comes to family. And I'm real proud of that.
I love how intentional you are. Folks out there listening, be intentional like Angie. Angie is very intentional about her space, about her self-care, about how she treats other people, especially her daughter. Make sure you apologize, y'all. If you make a mistake, say you're wrong and try to do the right thing. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify or iTunes, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button and share this episode with your family, friends, and colleagues who are interested in self-improvement through lifelong learning. And now for a word from one of our sponsors.
We had the pleasure of listening to George this morning on project-based learning, and he shared his story that his aunt encouraged him to go into education. And she was absolutely right. He is so talented at sharing information in a way that is easy to digest and is inspiring to go back and actually implement and make change.
So my takeaway is that Mr. Valenzuela was very inspiring. He was very motivational and helped me to think about a new way of getting my teachers excited.
When I set out to do a workshop, my key deliverable is energy. And this momentum is used to make connections, inspire, educate, and ultimately transform the audience so that they're compelled to take that same energy back to their schools and communities. And although we have fun, we tackle the hard topics of today, like educational policy, pedagogy for improving curriculum and instruction, and empowering today's students by connecting our work to the needs of the workforce. So please consider Lifelong Learning Defined for your next keynote, workshop, or conference, and overall instructional and educational coaching needs. My name is George, and I hope to connect with you soon.
We would love to have him come and do some work with us and help us be a little more successful and help our students to be more successful.
Are technology issues slowing you down at your school? If that's the case, look no further than 5-Star Technology's Virtual Help Desk. Their team of experts are available to support you remotely, resolving up to 40% of common issues like password resets, device connectivity, and lots more. With just a few clicks, you'll have access to their live chat from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Just enter your email to get started. Then you'll live chat with one of 5-Star's EdTech experts to diagnose your problem. And if their virtual help desk agent can't solve the issue completely, they will dispatch the ticket to your school's on-site tech team. Let 5-Star Technology Solutions be your support partner. Experience their virtual help desk, which is affordable, efficient, and always there for you. Please contact them at 5startech.com/contact us. Once again, 5startech.com/contact us. And for your convenience, you'll find this link in the episode show notes. Now let's transition into educational coaching and consulting. You are a consultant with Solution Tree, and you also have your own company. Angie, what do you love most about the consulting life?
The thing I love most about consulting is learning from all of these other people that I get to meet and work with every day. I rely on multiple perspectives. I rely on unique insight to make myself the best version of the associate or coach or consultant that I'm representing that day for the people that I have the opportunity to work with. The other thing I love about consulting is friendships that I'm building. These people all across the country who, my goodness, this work has brought us together and we were supposed to meet, right? We were supposed to be in relation together. And I never would have known them if I hadn't been given this opportunity to do this work. I am just so grateful for this opportunity every day.
It's so interesting you say that because I feel like we're like that for each other. I never had a person want to talk to me before being on the podcast. Typically, I know most of the people. However, because of Jamila Loving at Solution Tree, I'm interviewing people I don't know. You were the first one that reached out and tried to make a personal connection with me. I felt like what you were trying to do before committing was to make sure that this was a good fit.
Exactly.
That's the impression I got. I wasn't sure how to take that. But when I got you on the phone and we spoke, I realized what a genuine person you are. I'm glad you're here today.
Oh, thank you. I do think it is important to build a relationship with people, even if it's just this one chance meeting that we have, George, which for the record, I don't think that's how our relationship is. I don't think it will stop after the podcast today.
I don't either.
But I do also think, as much as I wanted to get to know you, I think it's important that you get to know me.
Angie, have you faced any disappointments in business and how did you overcome them?
I don't know that I would say I faced any disappointments per se, perhaps some I wish I would have known. I just was thrust into this full-time coaching and consulting work. I chose to pivot away from an organization that was no longer valuing who I was as a person, let alone as an employee. I made a hard pivot at a time where I wasn't really expecting to. I realized as a single mom, I'm about to walk in and quit my job and walk away from something. I looked in the mirror one day and said, Ange, where are you? Where have you gone? It made me realize that I was tolerating things that I was teaching my daughter not to. And how could I continue to model and teach her the things that were core values for me when I was driving to work every day, having this dissonance and this tension and this just disconnect? In terms of a disappointment, I think maybe it was that it took me that long to listen to myself and to what I needed. I know better now, and I won't make that mistake again.
Walking away from any situation that no longer serves us is one of the greatest acts of self-love. In my career, I've had to walk away from 3-4 different situations. In the beginning, it was hard. It got easier as I matured, as my confidence grew. I track my personal growth, and it's amazing to see how far I've come. But when I look back and look at those organizations and those people, they're doing the same exact thing they were doing the last time I left them.
Yes.
And I've realized I have to take care of me and, again, walk away from any situation that no longer serves us. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I commend you for that.
Thank you.
Angie, what's your top advice for other entrepreneurs, whether they're coming into the game or they've already been in it?
Embrace the mess. It might feel like it's going to be this linear hop or this direct line from A to B, and it is anything but. In fairness, right? If we were to look in the mirror, we could say, I could do that, right? I have learned this information. I have gathered this knowledge. I have developed this expertise, and I could share this with other people and allow other people to experience the same joy that all this knowledge and experience that this pathway brings me. Because as educators, we often have a variety of talents. When we start thinking about consulting, that's where the mess comes in, is what do I really want to be doing? For me, at least, the first year that I was out on my own, I have unique circumstances. I'm my only income, and I'm also strategic. Making an unplanned move in the course of my planned pathway, right, was all the things messy for me. But I would also say that in that mess comes the quiet, where you start to realize this is not just who I am, but this is the story that I want to share with other people. Starting to be able to narrow that focus and really feel confident about going deep with one or two ideas that you have to share with other people. We could, as educators, continue to spread ourselves thin, like we have for since the beginning of time that we started being teachers and educators, or we could find these places that we want to nurture within ourselves and then go and be the best at one or two things rather than spreading ourselves thin and trying to be all things to all people all the time.
I completely agree. I see a lot of speakers, a lot of coaches, especially the newbies, want to be a jack of all trades. I so appreciate my experience early on as an administrator. I learned about action research and doing instructional rounds. And I took that knowledge and focused a lot on instructional innovation, what that means for how the administrator supports any type of instructional innovation and action research, how the beginning teachers experience it, and then how the seasoned veterans also experience it. I'm glad anything new I've learned, I put into those pathways. Your brand new book, Through Solution Tree, is called Meant for More. Your book addresses honest talk about classrooms that are built on dignity, authenticity, and connections. Can I read a part of your book?
Sure.
I was conscious of the achievement gap before anyone named it as such. The disparities were clear from the first glance at our school's data. You didn't need to spend much time analyzing our students' performance to notice that instruction in our building was working better for some students than others. Our mission statement included the customary language of high levels of learning for every student, but our data were not even close to honoring our declaration of purpose. And when students did not make gains, we had difficulty sustaining them due to the high incidence of relocation among families, challenges for steady employment, and the compacted locations of affordable housing in our community promoted a constant shuffling of students between 2 or 3 schools each year. At the school where I first taught, only 1/4 of the 5th grade students in our building had started kindergarten with us. Despite collaboration among teachers and leaders across the various schools in the district, we were chasing a version of success that seemed impossibly out of reach. I am troubled to share that I had similar experiences as a curriculum specialist, a building leader, and a district administrator. We tried to bring about change, yet ultimately kept bumping up against the inequitable ceilings of policy, organizational history, and past traditions. Angie, I feel like you describe so many schools that I visit in our country. And as I read the section, it seems hopeless for some kids. But as I read your book, there is hope. Please tell us about the hope.
One of the things that drives me the most in my work is helping the adults see hope and possibility in their efforts with students. We oftentimes place demands upon our adults. We tell adults, we demand adults behave in certain ways, all in the name of improving student achievement. Those efforts forget two very important things. Number one, the adults in our classrooms are human beings. We have feelings, we have needs, we also have the absolute need to be in relation with one another, trying to problem solve and take the next steps together. When adults aren't at the table and decisions are being made, adults have a hard time implementing those decisions and achieving the desired impact. And do you know why? Because our perspective was never invited to situation. We have an unfortunate predicament, specifically public education, where in our urgency to make change, we forget that at its core, change is personal for people. People need to be a part of understanding what the change is, why the change is happening, and what it means for them. And oftentimes I come into schools now and I hear people aren't doing the work. Let's pause for a second, okay? People aren't doing the work because either they don't understand what you've asked them to do, or they don't think they have the skill set to do what you've asked them to do, and they're nervous about revealing that to you. The second perspective that's missing is that of the students. Here we are, all these adults in a room trying to figure out how to interrupt student apathy or increase student engagement. And never once when I go in,
Had a focus group.
there,
Sorry.
right? There's not been a focus group. There's not been a survey. There's all sorts of achievement data, but oftentimes there's not a single piece of data where we've let students speak, where we've let them share their perspective on what they need to be able to move forward.
Angie, you speak in my language, especially when it comes to educators. As a researcher practitioner, I have to pay very close attention to the intrinsic motivations of the participants. Intrinsic motivations for folks out there listening is what compels someone to do something. Like Angie said, what's in it for me? Their attitudes, their perceptions become the reality, and also their efficacy beliefs. They may not feel very confident about trying something out because they've been burned in the past. If we survey them before and after, if we build relationship and we're able to show them, hey, it's not that you can't do this. If you look at the data, it's because you think about it this way. And perceptions, they're not reality all the time, but they're reality to the person who's experiencing it. For example, it's raining outside and I say, oh my God, it's dreadful. My perception is the rain is dreadful. But Angie might think, thank God it's raining because my plants have to grow. Two different perceptions, two different realities, and folks that are doing professional development need to take that into account. That's why we have those Likert scales.
Yes, and both those perspectives have value. The rain is dreadful or the rain is nurturing my plants. Both of those have value. And I think that's the important thing as when we're implementing, not even just when we're implementing professional learning, but when we're designing it. I never walk into a space without having a conversation with the client. As you learned preparing for this podcast, it's often 2 or 3 conversations.
And now for a word from one of our sponsors. If you're a STEM and PBL teacher like me, you're always on the lookout for new project ideas and resources. You know George does PBL, and I'm telling you, look no further than SmartLab. SmartLab really has a fresh take on STEM and PBL. I'm proud to be a partner, and they sponsor the podcast. But just don't take my word for it. Check out what other educators are saying about SmartLab.
When students enter into SmartLab, they are allowed to think outside of traditional norms.
It gives them a lot of agency. They feel empowered and important. I think that's one of the biggest benefits of the SmartLab environment and the way the project process is set up.
SmartLab becomes this place where they can do those things and have the time and space to communicate better and even deal with social emotional stuff. They're having a bad day. A SmartLab's a place where we can change the pace of what they're learning to match their mental needs for the day. And that comes back tenfold later on when they want to be there and they want to learn and they want to do stuff and they feel safe and they feel like they can get the things they need.
That's one of the big benefits of being in more of a collaborative environment is it makes you have to work. It makes you have to be accountable.
Please look in this episode's show notes for a link to connect with SmartLab. Now let's talk about your passion for lifting people up and helping them find your joy. Angie, tell us more about that.
This stems from one of the greatest lessons I learned from my family, which was indeed that everyone belongs and everyone has value. One of the things that I've noticed about myself as a student and now into my adulthood is that I can't help myself. I like to notice things that people are doing well, and I like to tell them about it. I'm that person who will call the manager over in a restaurant, not to complain, but to say, hey, I just want you to know that we had really great service today. Here's how this person made us feel. Here's how they connected with us. And I just thought you'd want to know. Wouldn't our way of living, wouldn't our way of being be better enhanced if we just focused on what's right in the world? If we could just focus on what people can do.
Fantastic.
And when it comes to lifting others, that is just so meaningful to me, because at some point, everyone has had the experience of being told that they were less than, that they were not good enough. They've been debilitated in a situation. You never know what that one lift will do to just reinvigorate someone.
I can so relate to that. Anytime I'm in a restaurant, I'll go back if I can look at the kitchen staff, thank them for the dish, thank them for their service. I always tip. Even if someone doesn't do right, I'll still tip them the 15, 20%, whatever it is. I'll be nice about it. But if someone goes above and beyond or they do something well, I always make sure I do tell them. And if I'm in a different city, I don't eat at a chain restaurant. I eat at a mom and pop, and I always give them the Yelp review afterwards and make sure that I leave the type of review that I would love to get. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on Spotify or iTunes, please hit the subscribe button, please hit the like button, and share this episode with your family, friends, and colleagues who are interested in self-improvement through lifelong learning. All right, Angie, we're winding down, and I have a few questions for you. It's called the quick fire question round, part of the podcast. What are your top 3 EdTech tools?
Given my love for collaboration, I'm all about Google Drive. And actually within my Google Drive, one tool I've found that I've loved is this Chrome extension called Moat. It's an opportunity to do a voiceover. Since I can't split myself 17 ways and be 17 places at once, I found that my ability to facilitate a training, but record my thinking, record my voice has been quite helpful for folks just to get them over the hump and get started. I also would be remiss to say ChatGPT, Magic School AI, I think are great tools to support or to influence our efficiency as educators, particularly when it comes to things like unpacking standards or whatnot, just getting us over the hump and getting us into whatever the task is. Those tools can be quite helpful. And although I can't advocate for this one just yet because I'm learning about it, there's something that just was brought to my attention called Grade Scope. And it's an AI tool that supports grading and scoring and assessment design. I'm looking forward to getting to know that one a little bit better too.
Angie, what's your favorite education book other than yours?
I am wrapped in Goldie Muhammad right now. Unearthing Joy, Cultivating Genius. I love what she offers, the ways she invites us to think about how we create spaces of belonging and nurture students and adults in the classroom is amazing. Multipliers is another favorite of mine. And although it might not be an educator book, I live by the words of Arianna Huffington and her book Thrive. It's a must read for anyone out there looking to continue to nurture their own spirit and leverage their own potential.
Angie, what are 3 things that people need to do every day?
Smile, say something nice to yourself, and do something in service to others.
What is the best piece of advice you ever received?
Everybody falls. It's up to you to get back up. My parents taught me early on that nothing was ever handed to me. I had to earn everything that I wanted, and I had to work hard for that. It's served me well now into my career as well.
Angie, I picked 3 things I love and respect about you. And just to recap for the audience, you put your family first, you're a great education consultant and author, and you're passionate about lifting people up and helping them find their joy. Is there anything we didn't cover that you want people watching or listening to know about you?
In addition to the information that we've already discussed, I live my life by song lyrics. I was a vocal performance major in college as well, so I think that's the musicality that comes into me as it relates to my current work, as it relates to my writing, as it relates to how I live my life. Probably the song lyric that represents my life comes from none other than the great Whitney Houston. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity. And that lyric is passed down to my daughter. We have it on Post-it notes throughout the house. We just try to lead lives where we know our value, reminding us that in moments where maybe our sense of self is compromised, we know that we're in control of that. We can reclaim that at any time. It's up to us. That's what helps us move from wherever we are back to a place of joy.
This is the part of the show where I give you your flowers. I don't believe in waiting until someone's gone to tell them how I feel about them. Angie, we don't know each other well, but here goes. I can tell that you're a genuine and kind person. I can tell that you've been doing work for a long time in the trenches, and you've been blessed in recent years. Keep doing what you're doing. I can look at you, I can talk to you, hear you, and know that you see the blessings in your life. However, I've been around the block too. We don't always see our impact on other people. Just know that you'll see it one day, but you might not be here. Okay.
Yeah.
You're making a difference. You are blessed. I'm glad I got to know you. I hope I get to see you at some Solution Tree events. I'm going to invite you on my podcast with my other friends. Let's put this into the universe. How can people all over the world, and not just in Minnesota, contact Angie Freese to come speak at their school, conference, or event?
You can email me at angie@meantformomentum.com. You can find me on the Solution Tree website, and don't forget to find me on LinkedIn or Instagram as well.
That's it for this episode. Until next time, this is the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Lifelong Learning Defined podcast with George Valenzuela.